Gary.
Well, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here and to meet many of you. And believe it or not, I am from Madison County, Kentucky. And my parents were very excited when I called and said, we're moving back to Madison County. And so we're thrilled to be here and already falling in love with our community. And I want you to know that we at Inglewood, we're here to serve you, and any way we can come alongside you to make your work easier, please let us know. I am eager.
Just pray for us.
We are going to do that. I'm happy to do that this evening. You know, the Bible says, if anyone lacks wisdom, all he needs to do is ask. And so I'd like to ask on your behalf that God gives you wisdom and blessing as you meet together tonight. So let's bow together and let's pray. Father, we do take you at your word, believing that wisdom is ours for the asking. And so, Father, I pray for these leaders. Thank you, God, for how they serve our county. And I pray, God, that you would meet here with them tonight. I know that just as I use my gifts to serve you, that each of them have gifts that they are giving back to you in their service to our community. And so, Lord, I pray you would be gracious in your blessing.
Tennessee Research and Educational Center at 605 Airways Boulevard. We in room 150 in good old Jackson, Tennessee. It's Monday night, August the 19th, 2019, and it's a little after 6. Hope you enjoy this meeting. It's always a pleasure to see folks show up for us. Roll call.
Alexander. Here. Arnold. Yes. Beckham. Here. Brantley. Brown Claudel.
Here.
Brown Scott. Bryan. Bush. Here. Compton.
Here.
Peak.
Yeah.
Ellison. Here. Dobbins. Here. Hill. Here. Johnson Arthur.
Here.
Johnson Barber.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Mercer.
Here.
Montague.
Here.
Pearson.
Here.
Petty.
Here.
Banks.
Here.
Spearman. Here. Hughes.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Wall.
Here.
24 present, Mr. Chairman.
24 present. One absent. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of June 17th, June 28th, and July 1?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion by Commissioner Brown, seconded by Commissioner Brown. Nice hat, I like that. Very nice. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. And we have,
any presentations tonight, Mr. Chairman?
how you feeling?
Good.
Good. Glad to hear that. Announcement from the chair, I have a card, a thank you card from the Christie Little family for her father and mother, the Rices. It says, dear Commissioners, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your prayers, texts, presents at my parents' funeral and for the donations of Bibles to the Gibbons International. My father would be amazed at all the kind gifts and donations given in his memory. A Bible is a perfect gift that lasts forever. He would be so happy, and I am blessed to know each and every one of you appreciate your support on my effort and my family. Thank you very much. That is from Judge Christie Little family. I'd like to call on Pat English to come forward and give us a report on the progress we're making on jail, the progress we're not making on jail.
I hope I don't have any of that.
Good.
At the last meeting, I was announcing that we had the layout and everything done, and we were ready to dig footings, weather permitting. Weather did permit. We have all the footings dug and poured on our first detention area, which we refer to as Pod A. We have the concrete poured. We have the foundation blocks laid up to the slab level. We are in the process of roughing in the plumbing and electrical under the slab. As soon as that is complete, we'll put our gravel fill in and pour the slab. We've also started digging on Pod B, which is our second detention pod. We're about halfway around on the main footings. The block layers are falling in right behind them with the blocks. So making good progress.
Anybody have any questions for him? Well, you did good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Announcement from our school superintendent, Mr. Ray Worth.
Good evening, everyone. I'll be giving an update as usual on some of the projects that we finished out this summer at Lincoln / Whitehall School. We did open that school on time with the additional classrooms and some of the renovations. And hopefully we can continue some of those renovations throughout the year this year to get that exactly the way we want it. We're still working on the roof and modifications at Parkview Learning Center on East Chester, Community Montessori, and at East Elementary. Those projects are probably about 95% complete, but they did not hinder school opening at any of those locations either. The stadiums at Northside and Southside. Northside has a home game this coming Friday. We'll be pushing that to the limit. We had asked them earlier to schedule their first games away if possible, but that didn't happen. So hopefully it looks good, but we're pushing the limit to make sure that they're able to operate there Friday night. Southside's first home game is next Friday, so we shouldn't be pushing the limit there. The bleachers and everything are in. There's a few technical things that we have to get cleared in order to get our certificate of occupancy for both of those. And then in a couple months, we'll roll out our plans for next year's, what is current year's budget renovations and things that we wish to do. So thank you for your support.
How many roofs do you like?
Well, next year is what I'm gonna roll out. We have some, Alexander and Nova are the main ones. And then we have Liberty and Arlington, who, if we start now, they won't get as bad as the ones in the past, and it won't cost nearly as much. So that's what we go get out there, so we get to the point where we're scheduling these things before they start leaking into the walls and things that we've encountered in the past. So we're looking forward to getting to a point where we get on a cycle where we're doing preventative maintenance and not reactive maintenance. But Nova and Arlington will still fall on the reactive side. Anything else would be preventative.
Very good.
All right?
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Right ahead.
I'm Jared Miracle. I'm the Chief Academic Officer for the system. One of the things Mr. Washington and I discussed was bringing you some updates periodically on academic progress within the system. So I have a few things for you tonight. A couple of them pertain to support from the commission. We're certainly appreciative for that. We just completed a 2-year cycle of updating all of our curriculum in schools in math, English, science, and social studies. It's the first time that we've had updated, aligned curriculum and textbooks in our schools in quite some time, which is very significant. Our teachers do a lot. We need to provide them with the resources they need, and we certainly appreciate the funding support to make that happen over the past 2 years, because it's been a huge priority. We also have 5 additional pre-K classes that open this year, with 100 additional pre-K students that are in our buildings now, also due in part to support from the commission. So again, we thank you for your support there. And then a couple other data points. We want to continue to track our progress as we continue to implement our strategic plan. We've placed a high priority over the last 2 years on making sure our students are ready for the college and career opportunities that await them. So we're happy to come back and report that we've seen an increase from an average of 100 certifications earned by students in the school system every year to over 400 industry certifications earned by students last year. Those include things like OSHA 10 certifications, ASE certifications for automotive, CNA certifications, things that immediately make students more employable. We've also, over the past 2 years, increased the number of college classes taken from 312 2 years ago to over 2,328 just last school year. So that's a significant effort by teachers, counselors, administrators, so on and so forth. A lot of that's due in part to our partnership with TCAT Jackson. We had a couple hundred students involved in TCAT programs last year. We'll have approximately 500 students involved in those programs this year, working our way towards certification through the TCAT campus here in Jackson. We're also very proud of our LOOP program, which many of you know about, which puts students to work during the school day for half the day while they finish their high school diplomas. We started about 25 students last year. We'll have over 50 students involved in that program by the end of the year this year. And then lastly, as you know, we just received our data from last year's test scores, and I'll just address a couple of things that were in the press release we put out, and we'll have a more thorough presentation at our next school board meeting. But we know and we acknowledge every time we talk about this that the district continues to be in need of improvement. We have lots of areas that we can make progress in, but we are proud of the progress we're seeing. We had 21 tested subject areas last year. Our scores went up in 14 of those 21 areas. Most significantly in math, which is where we started our curriculum implementation 2 years ago. Test scores went up in every grade, 3rd through 8th grade, and in Algebra 1. And according to the state of Tennessee, there are only 32 districts that they named that did that out of over 140. So we want to recognize the hard work that our teachers are putting in there. We also had 13 schools out of our 21 schools that met their expectations in math, which is up from just 7 2 years ago. So again, progress there. In ELA, we saw test scores, that's English Language Arts. We saw test scores go up in 5 out of 8 areas. This was just our first year to really dig into focusing on our English scores. So again, we hope to see more there over the next few years. And then lastly, we had 10 schools that met their overall growth expectations, which is up from just 5 2 years ago. And I want to name those schools: Alexander Elementary, Andrew Jackson Elementary, Lincoln Elementary, Isaac Lane Elementary, JCT, Northeast Middle, Community Montessori, Southside, JCM, Early College High, and Madison. So again, we want to reiterate, we know there's more work to do. We're not there yet, but we're certainly proud of the progress over the last 2 years, and excited to have another school year underway and keep climbing that hill. So thank you.
Mr. Brown.
Yes, question. First was my commendation to you and the team, because, you know, it's the team that brings the dream to reality, and we'd like to commend everybody involved. However, I did not hear any reference to reading, how we progressing.
In reading, we get scores in 8 areas, and we went up in 5 out of those 8 areas. 10 out of the 21 schools met their growth expectations. That's up from 7 a couple of years ago. So this was our first year with our new reading curriculum, so we'll expect to see that number climb over the next few years.
Mr. Thomas.
Mr. Chairman, it seems like a good time to talk about a real-life program that we have in our school system, and not some alliteration on the back of a fantasy pamphlet, but a Rise to Read or team read that's in our schools right now. Mayor Harris can attest to the blood, sweat, and tears that James and Kelly Christopherson have put into that program. Is getting ready to kick off again coming up right after Labor Day in the schools. And I myself volunteer an hour each week at Lincoln. And now that we're in our nice new building over at Whitehall, I know the student population is up there at Lincoln, and I just got an email last week saying that we need 20 additional reading coaches at Lincoln, and I'm sure there's more volunteers needed at Team Read.
Is any volunteers here tonight?
All across.
Got any volunteers? Rise.
But
You got some back there, look.
already, like I'm saying, there's several of us that are already volunteering for Team Read, but I want to challenge the rest of the commission and really anybody in this room for 1 hour a week to go coach these second graders in sight words. It's an amazing experience to go into the buildings, 1 hour each week. You get 2 kids, and quite frankly, the little boys that I had last week, they want to see men in there as well. When the little boys come in and they see a room full of women, but 3 or 4 men in there, and they get to sit down across from the men, they kind of look around and say, yes. You know, so it means a lot. It means a lot to have somebody there each and every week. Again, I want to challenge everybody in here. Go to Rise to Read Jackson. You can find on the website, sign up, or you can come see me afterwards. I can tell you how to get involved. But they're desperately looking for additional coaches. But it's not a coincidence that we are improving in ELA right now. Second grade is where these sight words are so important, and that's where it's where it's at, and you know, the improvement's there. So again, I challenge everybody in here, get involved in a Rise to Read.
Thank you, Jason. That is a wonderful and outstanding program. I hope some of you will consider that. I know there's many here that's capable of doing that. And if you want to do something that'll make a difference, do it in the life of the child. I think many of us would all agree with that. Thank you for a great report. That's very good. Item number 6, report from county officials, standing and special committees, all business and action thereof by this board. Anybody else say anything? Here you go, Mr. Arnold.
Good evening. I have a report to make for the Madison County Beer Board. We had 2 applications that we've dealt with over the past couple of weeks. The first one was an off-premises permit, and that was for Michael Ray McWhorter. That's located at 1876 Lauder Lane, which is out by the airport. And the name of that business is Central Distributors Incorporated, and they were awarded an off-premises permit. We have the second permit was for an off-premises permit, and that name is Hazam Cade, and that's spelled K-A-I-D, and and that's located at 4078 Highway 45 South, which is in the Pinson area, Pinson, Tennessee. And the name of that business is Exxon Food Mart. And one thing I do need to point out there now, this is the first time we've dealt with this, but the Pinson Church of Christ is located next door to this place of business. But with our new resolution, that beer permit was awarded. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bush?
Highway Committee met on, August 13th, and we had two items we need to, go forward with. The first, we voted to reappoint Bart Walls as the, Madison County Highway Superintendent to another 4-year term. I believe that's number 9 on the agenda, but that's a committee recommendation.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Bart, you're safe.
Our other item was brought to us by Commissioner Ellison. In his district, there is the Denmark-Jackson Road Bridge, which is just west of the Betty Manley Road. We voted as a committee to place a sign on each end of the bridge that would say Mac T. Barnett Memorial Bridge. And Mr. Barnett was a longtime principal at West Middle School. And Commissioner Ellison, would you like to tell everyone about Mr. Barnett and why we named the bridge after him?
Yes, thank you for letting me do it. Mr. Mac T. Barnett, he was principal at the West Middle School for many, many years. He taught me in school, and I'm an old man.
Oh.
And he was well liked, and some of the constituents out there, Bishop Bond and several of the ministers out there came to me and said they would like to have some memorial of him, and he spoke at that bridge. And so I told him I would bring him to the commission to see if we could do that for the community. That's about all I can tell you.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion?
There is a cost.
There's a cost.
It's $655 approximately the county would have to refund to the highway superintendents for putting up the sign, and that's gonna would have to come from our general fund.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Quick question.
Oh.
Can we just take that out of your budget, Bart?
Well,
Sure.
that is not a precedent that has been set in the past as far as the highway department paying for items that are not normal road expenses. This, certainly I don't have any issues at all whatsoever with naming a bridge after any one or any particular event. But with that being said, I'm a little bit hesitant to pay for something like that out of the highway department's budget because of some of the laws that are in place that I think Mr. Maroney, Attorney Maroney, can back me up on as far as the highway department paying for such things. County Commission can approve for me to pay for things like that, but it has to be for another governmental entity. And I don't know whether this would be for Madison County government, if it would be for another party outside of the commission that's wanting this done. So that's kind of where we're at. My recommendation was that it not come from the highway fund, but that it be funded actually by whatever organization was wanting to name the bridge after Mr. Barnett. So
I'm fine with general fund. We just need to be careful. There's a lot of bridges in the town.
Everybody understand the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
If you have trouble hearing, it is
No.
because some of the commissioners do not speak
Of course,
loudly.
clarification, nothing to do with the issue. But we've had periodically where speeds change, things of that nature. Who knows the people sign on the road, period, anyway. We change speed limits and and do all these things, how is that normally paid for?
Highway department.
This would be different.
This would be different. This is not a normal sign. This is memorial, naming sign.
Would it make it any better if my name was on it? I mean, I'm just saying.
I don't think we can afford that one.
I didn't hear the question.
He's wondering who pays for the signs normally when you change speeds.
Speeds and.
Yeah, so like speed limits, road names, regulatory signs like stop signs, guide signs like curve ahead, stop ahead, school bus, things like that. Those are paid for by the highway department. Things such as naming bridges, signage that is signifying that you're coming up on an industry or
Direct or
a
something.
winery. We have some signs that indicate, you know, different locations of buildings and venues and stuff like that. We do not pay for
We
that.
just named a bridge out on, 45 South, Vietnam Veteran Memorial Bridge, and that was paid for by veterans.
That's right, and it was also initiated in the Tennessee State Legislature. It was
It was,
approved by
yeah.
resolution,
Right.
and that was handled at that level.
Right.
And this will be the first bridge that I'm aware of that is named here locally in Madison County by this body.
Commissioner
Mr. Chairman, on August the 14th, the Excess Resale Property Committee met, and we had the following bids to come before our body. The first one was property located at 54 Fox Street in the amount of $800. This was a committee recommendation.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Second property located at 623 Dr. Martin Luther King Drive in the amount of $600. Committee recommendation.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Next, 625 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drive in the amount of $600. Committee recommendation.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Next, 104 Birch Street in the amount of $950. Committee recommendation.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
106 Birch Street in the amount of $950. Committee recommendation.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
128 Booker Street in the amount of $950. Committee recommendation.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
2 Hamilton Drive in the amount of $2,500. Committee recommendation.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
And 129 Melrose Street in the amount of $628.38. Committee recommendation.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. That's all we have. Thank you, Mr. Christian. Ms. Mercer.
Mr. Chairman, the LIF contract that we have with Madison County employees ends on the 31st this month. So the insurance committee recommended we extend that contract and that each employee payment would be $16 per month. And this we already discussed it with the LIF, and they are supposed to get another contract after we approve the $16 for each employee of the county.
Commissioner Brown.
percentage of employees make use of it, utilize the lift?
Mr. White, you got it.
I mean, we,
About 100, Mike. 100.
100 out of how many? 100 out of
500.
500.
The recommendation was to accept the lift's contract, but those who use the lift would pay $16 to continue using it. Correct?
To the individual pay $16?
Yeah, right.
No, county.
We're paying $16
Now,
per.
for each employee.
That is using it, not for those who don't use it.
Right.
Right, okay. Before we were.
And if the one that, they sign up for it and, they don't use it, then we take them off the contract.
This, the county's paying the $16 per employee who does utilize the lift.
Yes.
Right.
May I?
Yes, sir, Commissioner.
Do the employees pay an additional fee, or is it just 16 from the
That's
county?
$16. And that's recommendation from the county.
Committee recommendation, any other discussion? Commissioner Wall.
There is an open enrollment for this, right?
Yes.
Yes. Everybody understand the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Next thing tonight, Blue Cross and Blue Shield have a special drug program that pays through the pharmacies. And the insurance committee is requesting that we participate in that special program. And the county will save $180,000 a year on that program.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion?
Are they legal drugs? I mean, I'm just saying. You know? Nowadays, you know.
Commissioner Brown, this is a serious meeting.
I'm saying, hey, these legal drugs are serious too.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
The insurance fund balance as of today is $1,607,077. That's what we have in the fund balance.
That's a little increase too.
No, so decrease.
It's a decrease, 107?
But I mean, we've been standing at over $1 million. Quite a while.
You said $1,070,000.
$1.6 million.
$1,600,000, okay.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, $1,607,000. And yeah, last year, last month, we did. The next item that, the insurance company is, recommending that, the Cyrus Security Insurance Policy. We asked that the county enter into this private program with, travel, the amount would be $11,828 per year. And this is protection of your computer programs and all.
Mike, you want to kind of explain all of that for us?
Mike.
You've all, I'm sure, read in the news accounts of various places, even locally, that have been hacked and been held ransom by cyber intrusion. This is a growing threat. It's a relatively new threat in the insurance industry, and they're handling it. Travelers is one of the leading insurance companies that are doing this. Madison County does have an exposure. This weekend, even in Texas, I read on the news this weekend, 20 local governments were affected this weekend. It's happening, it's real. Even if we really don't lose income because taxes are still coming in, there is an expense to cleaning this mess up if we have to get involved in it. In a ransomware situation, the cyber insurance would pay the ransom, and it's paid in Bitcoin. I mean, there's quite a convoluted way that the hackers demand payment. We had a small incident here in the county, but IT was able to recover it without a
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Mr. Moore.
Mr. Chairman, the Commission Rules and Bylaws Committee met on June 27th to discuss a email that was sent by our county attorney to just clear up some items that we have in Commission Rules and Bylaws. I have 3 recommendations coming from committee that was included, should have been included in everybody's packet. Current Rule 4H is in Henry, introduction of a resolution. Currently reads, all resolutions must be on the agenda only after review by the appropriate committee. All resolutions presented must have the signature of the respective committee chairperson. If said chairperson is unavailable, then the vice chairperson shall have signed. The committee's proposed new wording for that same Rule 4H, introduction of a resolution, is all resolutions must be considered by the full commission only after review by a committee selected by the commission chairman and after being circulated to the commissioners via email by the end of the 5th day prior to the meeting at which the resolution is being considered. It's committee recommendation.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion?
Yes, I would like to
Commissioner
ask, Mr. Wall, how does that differ from the resolution that we had up until June? It's, if you read that again, all resolutions go to, back to committee. And how does this differ? Sounds like to me you're saying the same thing.
We're basically making it mandatory that the commission chairman be able to appropriate that. So if he gets a resolution, he is able to see that it goes before the beer board, for instance, or the highway department, or whoever it may be. And then we're also saying in that same resolution, that same rule, that it's actually disseminated to all commissioners via email as well.
Yeah, I'm just reading up here, previous resolution, all resolutions must be on the agenda only after review by the appropriate committee.
Right, if you look at the.
And that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, if you look down there, it says selected by the commission chairman and after being circulated.
And that's where we lose a lot of people. There were 7 of us on the committee that approved that, I think, back in 2010. Charles Bird and I were 2 on there. We got 4 or 5 more here. But it was, they're plain to me, all resolutions must be on the agenda only after review by the appropriate committee.
Right.
And of course, last time we dealt with this, the appropriate committee would have been the beer commission.
Right.
Nobody knew about it until it passed on the day, so.
Well,
that doesn't improve anything.
The thing is that what we dealt with in committee was that we needed a single source of contact, basically, is what we're looking at. So if somebody comes in and says, hey, here's a resolution, or a commissioner comes up and says, here, I have a resolution, I need to know exactly which committee it needs to go before. And by having that single point of contact, we're able to do that, and he can disseminate to the appropriate committee.
Don't you think it would have been nice to follow the resolution, though, it was, as it applied to us back in June?
I'm not here to discuss the previous.
I understand.
Committee recommendation, Commissioner Brown.
Question, our normal flow of doing business is that from discussion, usually may not be the term, but a commissioner with a majority vote would require that this such and such committee would review or address the issue. It doesn't allow anything from what I'm reading now, any exception that would say our discussion is futile.
Basically, what that would do, though, is it actually brings us back to, and Attorney Maroney may want to chime in, but it basically gives us the ability to have that single point of contact, to be able to have anybody that wanted to, basically, that had a resolution, to be able to go to the commission chairman, whoever that may be at the time, and have him disseminate it to the appropriate committee.
Okay, I don't think you understand what I'm saying. Maybe I said it poorly. Okay. In discussion, the need for it to go to committee is how things normally get to the committee. It's not routine. Which means that if in discussion, good example, there was a situation, during budget time about the billboard. If we had not had discussion here, it had come, the suggestion would come from somewhere else. It never would have gotten to where it's supposed to be. According to that rule, we wouldn't have a voice except the chairman, deemed that a committee would address something. And you know, when we don't have a voice, means people don't have a voice.
I hear what you're saying, yeah, I agree with you, that was not on in the minds of the committee, I can assure you at the time when we discussed this. We were looking to have that single point of contact, is what we're.
Oh, I have no problem with single point of contact, the only thing is that the
But
representatives are cut out.
But at the
And
same
our
time,
discussion.
Commissioner, that does not stop any of us, as far as that goes, from being able to do that in meeting, in commission meeting.
But it doesn't address that, it says only through. It suggests only through. And it says at the recommendation, motion or the action by the body, and the chairman will assign to the appropriate committee. That's what's been normally done.
Commissioner Johnson.
Chairman, I agree with this, but I do have a question. In the past, we had a rules committee and a resolutions committee. When did they get combined?
They're not combined.
They're not combined. It's just.
Well, how is this coming, this is a rule, this is commission rule, the rules committee should be handling this.
Well, the resolutions committee was created, my understanding, and I asked that same question in committee. But the resolutions committee is only there to create the verbiage of the resolution once it's passed through the appropriate committee.
I think this actually, Mr. Chairman, for point of order, I was the authority was.
Okay, Mr. Arnold, she'd already
Yeah.
spoken once, he wanted to clarify, make a clarification. If you'll
I
let me.
understand we're trying to follow the rules, and I want to follow the rules.
We are following, you've already spoken.
And go back.
You've already spoken, Jimmy.
Well, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Arnold's point.
He's yielding
I
to
think
you, Mr. Arnold.
Commissioners are always
That's
allowed to.
He's yielding to you.
Before me,
That's-
so I'm
He was
certainly
just
not-
trying to clarify, sir.
And what I'd like to say about the resolution, right now, we're dealing with this beer resolution. We've already dealt with one, which is next door to the Pinson Church of Christ. And when I say next door, you walk out of the church and walk in the door right here. We have another one coming up in the next couple of weeks that we're gonna deal with the same way. I think I can just about guarantee you, neither one of those permits would be permitted if we'd have had time to discuss this resolution that you all forced through back in June.
Commissioner Johnson.
Like I said, I'm for this, but, the wrong committee is recommending this. The resolutions committee is not supposed to recommend any rules changes, period.
If they did, this is the rules and regulations committee, not the resolution.
There is no rules and regulations committee, there's a rules committee, and they're dealing with the county commission rules, so the rules committee should be handling this.
We are.
This actually came from the rules committee. That I think there may have been a.
Well, I may be wrong, but I thought I was on the rules committee, and I know nothing about it.
And I was on that too, and I didn't know anything about it.
So the wrong committee is handling this, period. That's just the way it is.
Sarah, who's on the rules committee?
That's actually.
I am.
I'm on it.
Sarah.
You were there,
You were there, Mr. Mercer,
Well,
actually.
no, it's last meeting I wasn't
I
there.
think you were there.
Yeah, you
yes.
made the motion.
No, no.
I think you were there, but I don't wanna debate that, but I do believe you were there, yes, sir. And it was the rules committee, I don't know, maybe somebody said resolutions committee a minute ago. It was the rules committee, and I could see the discussion going off, that's why I stood up, because I wanted to clarify that. It was the rules committee that brought this.
Mr.
And also,
Attorney, how many times the rule committee met?
None.
The first time I was there, the second time I was not there.
Look,
well, I can ask Ms.
come on, guys, let's don't lose our cool here. Just follow procedure.
I mean, I'll defer, I don't have memorization who was there, I'd certainly defer to Ms. McLean, if she wants
I
to
just
read that.
passed the minutes to the attorney.
Who are the members of that committee, Sarah?
It's on the front of that.
Jeff Wall, Katie Brantley, Arthur Johnson, Mike Taylor, Luther Mercer, Terry Spearman, and then Fred Birmingham and Steve Meyer.
Who attended that last meeting?
Luther Mercer, Mike Taylor, Katie Brantley, and Gary Deaton, and Attorney Steve Maroney.
That first meeting I was there, yeah.
That was it.
That you had one meeting? And this is the first time you bring this report to me?
It's the only meeting we've had since.
This came after the, this committee meeting came after the June meeting, and as you recall, you had a second meeting, at the beginning of July to adopt the budget, but only to adopt the budget. So this is the first meeting since that.
Just since we had that, so you only had one meeting?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, well, I'll just,
Would you read those names again, committee members?
Committee members. Sarah.
Billy Spain, Jeff Wall, Katie Brantley, Arthur Johnson, Mike Taylor, Luther Mercer, Terry Spearman.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I wanted to address one of the, I didn't mean to get off on the attendance, but I wanted to address one of the issues that came up and maybe try to clarify it. These are your rules, first of all, so whatever you all adopt is up to you. That's fine, as far as I'm concerned. I want to help guide you and draft it in the way that you want it. The significant difference, because there was a question as to the difference, if you noticed on the current rule, first sentence at the end, it references the appropriate committee. And I think one reason, I'm the one that asked this committee to come into session, so I want to explain why I did. After the issue with the interpretation on the last meeting, I made the statement, I think I made it that day while I was standing, I'd prefer not to be interpreting your rules. I'd prefer, I want to help facilitate whatever business you want to accomplish. But there was a question as to which committee that resolution came from, which committee it should have come from. And the only guidance is the appropriate committee, which is not a lot of guidance to me, because I'll usually get the question. So I suggested that there be some clarity added to that rule to address which committee ought to consider resolutions. I said, how you decide which committee it is up to first the Rules Committee to recommend it to this body. But I did suggest that it needed to be more clarified than just saying the appropriate committee. So I asked for clarification on that point. Your rules already state in other matters that matters are to be referred to the committee as determined by the chairman, and his vote can be overruled by you as a body. So that was the reason why, for clarity's sake, one suggested change was to reference that it would be a committee selected by the commission chairman. I just wanted to explain that was the reason that I requested that particular language be clarified, so we weren't, there wasn't any uncertainty as to what's the appropriate committee. The second thing I asked the Rules Committee to address had to do not with which committee brings a resolution, but how is notice properly established? Because again, there were questions about that, and again, I don't want to be interpreting your rules, and I wanted there to be some clarity. So I asked that Rules Committee to address, in whatever manner it recommended, in whatever manner you all approved, what is the proper method for circulating notice of a resolution. And so there's the change that the committee came up with. But since I see where the discussion's going, and I'm the person who more or less put it on the table, I wanted to explain why I did that, so that there wouldn't be any, hopefully there will be less confusion, and in the future it will simply be a matter of referring to the rules and not me making a judgment call.
Commissioner Brown.
Can I get a further clarification on the very first sentence? As a practice now, a committee's report could lead to a resolution, an action, bond, or whatever. According to the first sentence is that if the resolution is going to be taken up, it will be on the agenda like it used to be. It would be on the agenda, rather than knowing about when it comes from a committee. It says that all resolutions must be.
You're talking about the original language. Yes,
Yes.
it said, the original language says all resolutions must be on the agenda only after review by the appropriate committee. The second the proposed wording does not include the language on the agenda. And again, that was a recommended rule. I didn't write it. I suggested that it be looked at, but the committee as a body wrote it. But I think I think I'm characterizing it properly to say one of the questions was, your agenda goes out fairly early in the month. Usually, it's 10 days before this meeting, and a lot of times that's in the first week of the month, sometimes as early as, the 4th or 5th, I think. And some of your committees, in turn, don't meet until right up to the time of the meeting. Some committees meet 30 minutes before a meeting. And so I think one of the things I heard expressed in the meeting was, sometimes there are some resolutions that are addressed after the agenda has already gone out for the month. So there was the discussion was, is there a better way to circulate notice so that when something comes up, it doesn't have to wait approximately 30 days to be handled. Whether that's a good idea or not is not for me to decide, that's for y'all to decide. But that was the nature of the discussion and why it came up that way.
Okay, so I do have correct understanding that resolutions that come to us will be coming from committee, but it'll be on the agenda, first sentence.
Well,
Am I understanding English?
no, sir, the first sentence is what the current rule says. The first paragraph is what the current rule says.
Mm-hmm.
If you all adopt what's been proposed, it's not necessary for a resolution to be itemized and listed on an agenda. It is necessary that it be circulated to you via email at least by the end of the 5th day before the meeting. So, for example, if you had that second rule in place and there were a resolution considered tonight, that resolution would need to have been circulated to all of you by this past Wednesday.
The question not to you,
Yes, sir.
to the committee.
Yes, sir.
If we were to do that, how does Mary and Joe Public have an opportunity to be enlightened and informed in reaction to have an opinion about it? I thought it only comes up at the last, if the cut might come up last minute.
I would say that the same thing would hold true with, if they are the ones that have brought, you're talking about just public.
I'm talking public
notice.
local government.
Public notice,
Okay.
public notice of I would say the same thing. It would be 5 days prior. Sarah would send that out with the notice like she would any other time with, as far as the resolution is concerned.
Okay, I'll just speak with my vote. That's not enough time for people to be informed, react, and address them if they have a concern.
Mr. Johnson.
What I was gonna say, I think we were all blindsided about this because none of us had seen the resolution. And, we got here and the resolution was read to us and we voted on it. I passed because I know in the rural areas, the churches do not want stores next door to them or in an area close to them that are selling beer on Sundays or selling beer. And so, I just think that, we were blindsided and I passed. But enough of it is that now, and then when we went to the beer board meeting, the way I understood this, Jimmy, prior to this, it's 2,000 feet away from a church. It was the closest you could get to it. Well, I understood, and Fred can correct me if I'm wrong, they can put it right next door. Now it's, I thought the resolution said 2,000 feet to 1,000 feet. But then when, we went to the meeting, wasn't it, they could put one right next door. Is that right, Fred and Jimmy?
Yes, where the new rule was right
Yeah,
now.
the
It
new
is,
rule.
we
And
just
so-
had one, it's next door.
Yeah, and so, I just don't think the church people want things like this right next door to their church. Maybe they need to be out there
Mr. Chairman,
ministering to them, but,
Ms. Johnson, but that's not the issue we're voting on.
well, we were blindsided. We didn't have time to think about it.
Ms. Ross.
Yeah, just like when our attorney was explaining about resolutions when they come up. Very simple, just like we've been doing, we'll probably even do it here tonight, we should have already done it. A resolution comes up, if we're gonna suspend the rules, you take care of it. We just got through allocating, $650? That was out of order to do that. Our rules gotta be, if it's $500 or more, we don't allocate it. So we're supposed to suspend the rules, but none of us felt like that was important enough to suspend the rules. It's very simple. When resolutions come up, if we haven't had, but important resolutions like this one was, where beer is sold next door to our churches. And in the past, we had the 2,000-foot rule. We had no way of notifying any community, any church group that would have an interest in that. And I'm sure in the very near future, we'll be getting some feedback on that. We need to take a real close look at doing away with what was done and correct that. But of course, what's already been done is done right now. But we might be able to keep these things from happening in the future.
Technically, just to answer your question, Chris, on the, one thing that I would say to that is talking about the, being out of order on the $655, that came from committee. And technically, the committee reports are on the agenda already anyway. So anything that's coming from the committee is actually on the agenda. So that would not, relate. But also to Commissioner Johnson's point, I disagree that, you're being blindsided by this because we met in, June the 27th and it was in the agenda package. I mean, like it was supposed to be when it went out to all the committees.
I'm trying to sit down, Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
let
Brown.
me be real brief. I love your hairstyle, you're my friend. But like Jimmy said, and like most things, it wasn't on the agenda, the report was on the agenda.
Right.
And for us to have to operate and enforce open government, the people who represent the people who react to us, let us know how they want to be represented. We need to know so we can keep them informed. It wasn't on the agenda, most people not on the agenda.
Ready to vote? Mr. Perry?
One comment, these are our rules here on how we get, resolutions to the proper place. These are not the rules and regulations that needs to go out for public notice. These are just our rules of how we handle each item on our agenda.
Does everybody know what we voted on?
I don't.
Repeat the motion.
Motion is to change current rule 4H to state, all resolutions must be considered by the full commission only after review by a committee selected by the commission chairman and after being circulated to the commissioners via email by the end of the 5th day prior to the meeting at which the resolution is being considered. Committee
Roll
recommendation.
call.
Anybody understand the motion? Roll call.
Alexander.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Arnold. No. Peckham.
Yes.
Brantley.
Yes.
Brown Claudette.
No.
Brown Scott. Bryant. Bush.
Yes.
Compton.
Yes.
Deaton.
Yes.
Ellison.
No.
Gobble.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Johnson Arthur.
Yes.
Sir?
Yes.
Johnson Barker.
Yes.
Martin.
No.
Mercer.
Yes.
Montague.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Spain.
Yes.
Spearman.
Yes.
Stevenson.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Wall.
Yes.
Anybody want to change their vote? Nineteen yeses, 4 noes, 1 passed, 1 absent. Motion passes. Mr. Wall.
Second rule, is going to actually relate to the first, and we're just striking the last sentence of Rule 9C as in Charlie. First, it originally stated, it was the title was Committee Chairpersons and Agenda. Standing committee chairperson should notify the commission chairperson of the major matters to be reported to the board at the next meeting. And the last sentence, this should be done in time for the commission chairperson to include the same on the agenda. Since we did take care of that in 4-H by making it where the email was going to be sent out by the end of the 5th day prior to the meeting at which the resolution is being considered, we moved to strike that last sentence to now state Rule 9C as in Charlie, committee chairpersons and agenda, standing committee chairperson should notify the commission chairperson of the major matters to be reported to the board at the next meeting.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Last rule change for item 9G, as in golf. Duties of the committee and subcommittee officers was simply just a housekeeping grammatical error. The last sentence you will notice also no as the quote sunshine end quote law. We just changed the word no to known, added the end there, just a grammatical change. Committee recommendation.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
The copy of the new rule will be disseminated out to everybody.
Commissioner Petty.
Thank you, Chairman. The department committee met, and I know there's been some department heads that have asked me about when are we going to implement the WASP program. There are some holdups. We got some things we're checking on. We're not quite ready to implement that, nor have we purchased the software just yet. So, but that will be coming forth as soon as we can.
Commissioner Petty is not speaking loudly, so you may turn your audio up as high as it can go.
Owned by the Williams family, out on Christmasville Road, that we talked about being donated to us as a park. We've got some, we've got surveys of that now. We've got, and Mike Winslow has been out from risk management, and I hold in my hand a report. There are some things that are gonna have to be, additional things that we weren't aware of at the time. Besides the ADA on the restroom, we're probably gonna have to do some, implement some kind of a sewer program there.
Commissioner, why don't you explain why it was donated?
Yeah, these are the people that, that they're getting on up in years, as I mentioned, the last committee meeting, the last, commission meeting, that there's about 7 acres that they have, set up as a, almost like a park now. There's a pavilion there, there's a swing, restrooms, running water, that type of thing. And they're getting up in years and do not want to maintain it. And they've asked if we would like to have it for a park out in that area. And of course, the Conservation Board would like to have that. Of course, it came before the property committee. And then, and so Ed's been working on getting drawings and stuff like that. And so.
You don't have the cost yet, do you?
Do not have a cost yet. What was it that it cost us about, it's about 5,000, wasn't it?
For the
Sewer.
yeah, it was about
5,000 or 6,000 put in. All got to put in a septic tanks and field line.
You gonna bring it back to us next
Yes,
month?
I will. I'll bring it back. Just an update. That was from the property committee. Now, the, also come to fruition after our meeting, I got a phone call from, AT&T that, we're looking at, there's a section of ground, there's a little letter, section of ground that, behind the ag building where the election commission is. And, there's, no, that's the land for, the park. If anybody's curious, there it is, it's about 7 acres. I'm not quite ready to do that. We've got the proper description, and I'm letting the county attorney know too, that we're gonna have to get with about the terms. Now that you've got the property description, we can work on it.
I don't think I have that for display.
One with a little black square in the back.
up as loud as it can go, because Commissioner Petty is not speaking loudly.
Behind that building, it's back in that, where the kudzu vines and the woods are between us and the, what used to be Allen Vines, motors back there. It is an 80 by 80 square that AT&T is interested in buying, or not buying, leasing. And they wanna build a gravel road to it, that they can get to 24/7. And then we'll put a 180-foot tower, cellular tower on this property. And so it'll be under the 200 foot, it will not have to have any lights. And paying us $1,200 a month for this property. And that would be increased by 10% every 5 years. And they want a 90-year lease on this. So, we're early stages. I just kinda wanna get the feel from this body.
Those are 5-year options, wasn't it?
Yes, it'll be increased every 5 years, not options. It's for 90 years. And the rent would increase every 5 years.
Full 90 years?
Yeah.
They normally have an option every 5 years, too.
No, it's not an option. This will be just, the only thing will be that it goes up 10% every 5 years. So, that's not even good. But anyway, that's the property. And out there in those trees,
Behind the election commission, right?
out there in those trees, just where that cursor is in that area, going right in that area right there would be a 80 by 80 section that they will build the road to maintain whatever. And it's not property that we're gonna use anyway, and so it's.
In 99 years?
90 years.
Committee recommendation, any other discussion?
Now, let me say this, it's not for sure, they're gonna submit this particular section and 3 others, I think, and then it could or could not get it.
We have the volume up as loud as it can go. Commissioner Petty is not speaking loudly.
Or not.
You want to vote on it? It's not a committee recommendation.
Not a recommendation, it's a question.
We'll bring it back to the recommendation, we'll vote on it.
Okay, done. All right.
Commissioner.
This time for the Conservation Board, I'm gonna turn the floor over to Ed, and let Ed speak, so he got a few things he wants to say.
Okay. I'm gonna bring everybody up to date on summer camp. We served 223 kids this year, 141 at Nova, 82 at Beach Bluff. We are doing an after-school program at Beach Bluff, very small. We're just using the existing staff, but it's very small, so if anybody needs aftercare at Beach Bluff, we do still have openings. We're registering for football and cheerleading right now. And Mr. Petty mentioned about Godwin Park. We are also in the process of applying for a Blue Cross grant. That is, there's no matching required. They just built a park in Memphis and a couple of other places. And we are looking at a big splash pad at Libra Lane, and also a fitness park or some fitness equipment at the existing walking trail at Libra Lane right now. It's probably, we're still working on the numbers, but probably about $800,000 to $900,000. Again, no match required. We've got to get it in by the end of August, so we're working on that to try to get that going. The last thing I have is the state grant that we applied for about a year ago.
I apologize for those of you who say you cannot hear. You need to adjust your volume because some of these commissioners and spokespersons are not speaking loudly.
October, we can start the bidding process of getting the 2 playgrounds and the arena built. So, got a lot of stuff going on.
In other words, they're mumbling.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any other reports? Item number 7, report from the county mayor.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, everybody. First, I'd like to say that Cuba Court Services Department received an award last week or week before last. I'd like Amy Jones to stand up and tell us about this award, because it is a real honor for their department.
Thank you, sir. So we were honored on August 6th by the Tennessee Juvenile
with the 2019 Award for Excellence. This award is given each year to a court that exemplifies a progressive philosophy and serves as an example of best practices for courts across the state. The Madison County team has consistently shown a willingness to contribute to the betterment of juvenile court systems across the state by sharing what they have learned about what works and what doesn't with court-involved children and families. The state of the field in Tennessee is far more advanced because of the contributions of Madison County. So I wanted to share that today just because I have an incredible, hard-working team of people who does a difficult job day in and day out, and they are amazing, and they certainly deserve this award.
Thank you, Amy. We appreciate what you do in our community, our system. As you well know, the sheriff filed suit against us on July the 29th. In circuit court, that suit was assigned to Judge John Allen in our court system. Our lawyers filed an answer on August 5th. Judge Allen has advised the lawyers that he will recuse himself. And I think the judicial district, the administrative office of the court likely will, within the next 2 weeks, appoint a judge to handle that case. And we don't know who it will be, but they're anticipating me within the next couple of weeks. And we will be meeting with our lawyers as far as just the strategy going forward for the suit. So I just want to let you know the update on that. The only other thing I'd like to say is, 4 weeks ago, I was laying in intensive care in the hospital, and I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your calls, your prayers, your thoughts, flowers, food, you name it. Thank you very much. I'm doing good. I'm not up to full steam yet. Hope to get there, but thank you all for your concern and your thoughts and prayers.
You look better now than you did 4 weeks ago.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Item number 8, appointment of 4 members to the Ethics Committee by this body, 1-year term. Charles Bird, Senior, Curtis Howard, Tracy Snyder, and Michael Ashley. Who's coming off of there? Charles Bird. Charles Bird is coming off.
Jamie Elliott.
Jamie Elliott is going on. Any other nominations?
I'm going to nominate the members listed on item number 8. Except for Charles Bird.
Charles Bird and Jamie Elliott. His resume is in your packet.
And we can add Jamie Elliott.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye. I'll second.
Katie second. He is a good one. Yeah. Number 9, appointment of the highway superintendent, which we've already done. Appointment of 3 members to the E911 board by the county mayor with approval of this body, 4-year term. Joel McAlexander, Mrs. White is coming off, John Marion Cumberland, Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to first recommend the reappointment of Joel McAlexander and the sheriff to this board for this term. And as well, Ann White is coming off, and I would like to recommend Mr. Kevin Beaton for replacement and.
Don't hold his name against him.
Pardon?
Don't hold his name against him.
Well, the hospitals always have a representative on our 911 board. They have asked for representation on that, and Kevin
related to our duty?
I didn't ask, I don't wanna know.
No, he's not related, Barbara, so you're safe. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. I need a motion, Mr. Petty.
That's my motion.
Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Johnson.
Kevin Deacon and John Mayer.
All in favor say aye. Any opposed? None. Item number 11, appointment of 9 members to the Industrial Park Committee by this body, 1-year term. We have Jerry Smith, Terrence Speedman, Adrian Montague, Jeff Wall, Jay Bush, William Martin, Brett Beckman, Cal Perkins, Billy Spain, and Doug Stevenson Cummings. I have a motion by Commissioner Mercer.
Second.
Have a second by Commissioner Hale. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Item number 12, appointment 2 members to the library board by this body, 1-year term, Mary Jane McWhorter and Amy Dietrich Cummings.
I'll make the motion.
Have a motion by Commissioner Johnson. Second by Commissioner Brantley. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? None. And that was your appointment, Mary. You approved that, aren't you?
Sure.
Item number 15, appointment of 2 members to the planning. 13. Appointment of 1 member to the Economic Development Commission by this body, 5-year term, David Brasher. Cummings.
Motion.
You need to skip that.
That's the city.
That's a city appointment, and we're gonna skip it. Item number 14, that's why I skipped it, I knew I skipped it for something. Item number 14, appointment of 3 members of the Ethics Committee by County Mayor. With this body's approved 1-year term, Michael W. Steele, Eden Smith, Doug Ross, and Company.
Mr. Chairman, Doug Ross has sent a letter of resignation, and we've accepted, but I would like to recommend the reappoint Mike Steele and Eden Smith, and we will come up with an appointment for the next member next month.
You have Reggie Smith's resume.
This is the ethics committee.
This is Planning Committee. 14 is Ethics Committee. Are you, I still do first? Okay, I'm sorry, I jumped the gun. We'll move them, the Ethics Committee back to next, move it up to next month's meeting. Item number 14.
Mr. Chairman, you still need to vote on the other 2.
There we go.
On the
He wants to
other
put all of it back.
I thought you said you were wanting to appoint the other 2 and address Mr. Ross later.
We can do that.
That's the recommendation on number 4.
We have a motion to appoint, I need a motion. Motion. Have a motion by Commissioner Alexander, second by Commissioner Brown. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? None. We'll replace Doug Ross next month. Item number 15, appointment of 2 members to the Planning Commission, Madison County Outer Region by County Mayor with this body's approval, 4-year term. John Tripp Tucker and Ann Rowland, incumbent. Mayor.
Chairman, Trip Tucker resigned, we accept his resignation. I'd like to recommend Reggie Smith to take his place on the Outreach and Planning Commission. Y'all have his resume in there, and reappointment of Ann Rowland for that position.
Make a motion.
Have a motion, Commissioner Johnson, second by Commissioner Brantley. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? None. I would say that statesman Reggie Smith is an outstanding man to put in that position, Mayor. He did well. Item number 16, any amendments or transfers to general fund, school department, capital project, highway department, debt service, juvenile court service, budget for fiscal year 2018, 2019. Mr. Stevens.
Mr. Chairman, before we get to, item number 16, I'd like to ask for suspension of the rules so we can take up about the Ashport property. He's gonna bring it. Oh, he is gonna pass, all right, I misunderstood. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Johnson.
Budget amendments, Fund 141, General Purpose School, Item 1, $3,135. This is insurance recovery.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Item 2, $588,200. Special education funds are being moved from object codes into special education functions to align in the general ledger with the new state requirements.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Item 3, $4,700 coordinated school health grant.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Item 4, $172,394 voluntary pre-K grant.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Item 5, $140,171 school safety grant.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Fund 142, school federal projects. Item 6, $3,440 consolidated administrative pool. This amendment aligns the original estimated fiscal year 2020 budget to the actual budget approved by the state.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Item 7, $982,000 district priority school improvement grant. This amendment reverses a prior directive from the state to keep carryover funds separate from the current year funds on our general ledger.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Item 8, $862,871 district school priority improvement grant. This amendment aligns the general ledger to the revision 1 budget and E-plan and includes carryover funds from fiscal year 2019.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Item 9, $232,000 additional targeted support and improvement grant. This grant provides support for district and school level strategies to improve student outcomes.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Item 10, $3,457. This grant amendment aligns the original estimated 2020 budget to the actual budget approved by the state, which includes an increase in funding.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Item 11, $4,265 CTE Perkins Basic. This amendment aligns the original estimated fiscal year 2020 budget to the actual budget approved by the state, which includes an increase in funding.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Item 12, $60,000 Perkins Reserve Grant. This amendment aligns the original estimated 2020 budget to the actual budget approved by the state.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Fund 143, Food Service. Item 13, $242,400 Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Grant. This amendment reclassifies current funds to the grant cost center.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
In-house amendments are 2A through 2I. And
I move we take 2A through 2I.
Second.
Everybody, you got a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, was that just to take them all on at
Take 'em
one
all.
time? All right, so I recommend that we vote on all of them.
Committee recommendation, no second required.
Can I ask a question? I'm not understanding what equitable sharing is on 2I. What is that? I'm not real clear on that.
There's a county drug fund and a federal drug fund. Federal drug fund, the DEA works through our Metro Narcotics Division. Those funds are kept separate. It's two separate drug funds. Equitable sharing is the federal one.
Okay, very good. I just wasn't sure. Thank you.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Under county buildings, under item 3, $2,000, request for funds from maintenance and repair buildings to be transferred to overtime.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Commissioner Taylor.
Could this, I think this was overtime was for the flood we had. What I'm doing on that, we had to set up a budget for CJC, when I took it over, I just overlooked an overtime option. Okay. So I'm moving it from 335 over to where I have some money in the overtime option. Okay. I was just gonna ask about insurance recovery if it was for the flood.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
County buildings, item 4, capital project, request for funds to be appropriated for new HVAC units for the building department, mailroom, marriage license office, county clerk's office, basement of the courthouse, and the roof of juvenile court for the judge. This comes from fund balance.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Commissioner Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure as we're moving forward, because this is the first month after our budget, we've already got capital projects, and I've talked to Mr. Aday here about what we're planning on doing, about moving forward with these projects. He's got, Mark, I want to address how many units you have and all that, so we can, I want everybody to understand that we've got a lot of units that we have to work with, and what we're trying to do to move forward on getting these taken care of.
There's 72 units in the buildings that I own, and 60% of them are 25 to 35 years old. I'm trying to get them replaced. I replaced 15 the last 2 years. I got juvenile, which threw me back some on the percentage. And now, I plan on replacing 70 years, where I got them down to at least the oldest being 20 years old. I had 7 to be replaced this year, but now I've got 6 that have just, all these are 30 years to 35 years old. Now, the juvenile court, I got 2 over there that are going down, one's down right now. These all need to be replaced.
Mr. Cotton.
These were not in any capital request in front of the capital committee this year, correct?
2 what?
2, but how many did you say you're gonna need to replace?
Well, I was planning on replacing 7 on my own budget, and then these 6 have come up now that are going out.
That's 13.
We're adding Freon and about every 6 weeks now.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes, sir. I'm singing my familiar song. We have a budget hearing every year. And I am just very sensitive about preventive maintenance, preventive management, and accountability. We've been discussing these things, like the new mold situation in the court building. Why would all these things in somebody's budget? I'm seeing new money, every time you look up, new money. Either that's the wrong term, or something's not being managed. You know, why is this new money? That's my question. Can somebody tell me that? Why is that new money? I'm not denying that we need to do what we're doing, but why is that new money?
It's new money because those items that we didn't realize or we weren't presented with the need for them earlier.
Well, some of them were, for
Now,
example,
item 5, you talked about the mold and the wallpaper.
No,
This is new money partly because a lot of it is insurance money.
And they weren't aware of that there was mold there.
Mr. Winslow is gonna explain this when we get to the next item.
now, we had discussed it in property committee meeting beforehand. That's why I thought maybe it would have been in the budget. So it might have been discussed in the whole committee. But, we sing the new money song all year. And, I'm gonna sit down, but I don't know why we have a budget committee. If we got to keep on coming up with money for this and that, somebody's not in charge, somebody, I'm gonna call them like this. Don't mean to hurt the feelings, but I'm getting straight. Somebody's either not in charge, not guarding the money, or not being futuristic in their planning. Everybody in government have to do that. From a little intern in Washington.
Which one's up here? Mr. Taylor?
I agree with, somewhat Commissioner Brown said, you know, we're gonna have emergencies like the 45,000 in the clerk's office with the mold and wallpaper, those things we have to deal with on a basis. But unless these air conditioners are completely down, they should have been budgeted in capital. And, you know, we can try to limp through next year if we can.
What I've asked Mark to do for future in addressing Commissioner Brown's request, I think this is what we need to do on this particular thing is, come up with a 5 to 10 year plan on the ones that we're trying to fix. In other words, these 2 or 3. But we also need to set aside some money in capital as the chairman here, to set aside some money for these type of emergency things like this. In other words, instead of just coming up here in August and then we go, hey, we need the money. So we need to have that money set aside.
Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, if I might just make one comment. Every year in this maintenance budget, it has always been anticipated that we were gonna have to replace some units just because when we change from heat to cooling, we're gonna have 2 or 3 units that's not gonna work. And the same thing in the fall. And that's always been built into the budget. What Mark is doing here, he has built into the budget the replacement of some of these older units that he knew that's not down yet, but he knows it's coming because of the age of them. But then he got hit with this, just boom, out of the blue. It was down, big units. And so, and then I told him, I said, you can use all your money out of your budget to address that, but we're gonna have to come back knowing that these units he's planning to replace this year was already built into his budget. So it's 6 of one, half does the other as far as the units concerned. We can budget it now, or we can wait till he runs out of money, and budget later in the year. So it's kind of one of those things, you just cannot predict these old units, nor how much they're gonna cost, nor when they're gonna happen.
You wanna repeat that after the motion?
It's $44,758.35. The request for funds to be appropriated for new HVAC units, 4 new HVAC units for the building department, mailroom, marriage license office, county clerk's office, basement of the courthouse, and roof on juvenile court, for the juvenile court judge.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any other discussion? Commissioner Thompson?
What part of, how much is the roof? What part of that is the roof?
There's no roof on
I
there.
mean,
And
roof.
It says roof unit.
Roof unit. It's a roof unit, so just one unit. There's 2 on the roof. There's 2 units, and they're completely out right now?
One's completely out, the other we're adding 3 onto it. I'm replacing it Wednesday.
Roll call.
Alexander?
Yes.
Arnold?
Yes.
Beckle?
Yes. Yes.
Bradley?
Yes.
Francois,
Yes.
Brown Scott?
Yes.
Bryant?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
Bush?
Yes.
Compton?
Yes.
Deep?
Yes.
Ellison?
Yes.
Gobble? Yes. Hill? Yes. Johnson Arthur?
Yes.
Johnson Barber?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
Thank you. Martin?
Yes.
Mercer,
Yes.
Montague,
Yes.
Pearson,
Yes.
Petty,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Spearman,
Yes.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Taylor,
No.
Walton.
Yes.
Anybody want to change their vote? 24 yeses, 1 no. Motion passed.
Item 5, $45,000. Funds to be appropriated for removal of wallpaper and mold in circuit court clerk's office. Mr. Winslow will explain this.
This is a result of a plumbing issue back in May. We had a leak on the 3rd floor in the southeast section of the building, which is Kathy Blunt's circuit court area, 2nd and 3rd floor. We had a leak on the 3rd floor, which inundated a good section of the southeast quadrant over there. That water ran down through the ceiling into the 2nd floor and down the walls and caused some problems. Now, I divided this project into 2 phases just for logistics and insurance purposes. We have completed phase 1, which we discovered mold behind the wallpaper on the 2nd floor as a result of this plumbing leak. The reason mold grew behind the wallpaper is that this wallpaper, which is almost 20 years old, is vinyl wallpaper. It does not breathe, it does not leak. If moisture gets in behind it, it's like a petri dish. It is gonna grow mold. So we discovered mold on the 2nd floor from that, derived from this plumbing issue in May. On the 3rd floor during the inspection, because of concerns from employees, and rightfully so, they were concerned with air quality and whatnot. We had an air quality engineer come in, test, the air quality was fine, mold was found, but it was surface contamination mold. It had not been disturbed to where it got into the air. So our employees never were breathing mold. Now, had they disturbed it, if they had ripped the wallpaper off, brought in contractors, they eliminated the mold. I mean, eliminated it by cutting out the drywall and physically removing the contaminated surfaces from the building. They replaced the drywall and have removed the carpet in the original affected, not the carpet, the wallpaper in the original affected areas, and have painted the walls in a cleanable paint. So if the walls ever get wet again from a leak, it can simply be wiped off and cleaned before mold does develop. The 2nd phase is there's wallpaper in occupied areas on that 2nd, 3rd floor still. These are areas where our employees are working. In the past, there have been roof leaks in those areas, because on that end of the building is where all the big air conditioners set on the roof. And they're anchored to the roof, and over time, things wiggle, things leak. So there have been leaks over there. We do not know without pulling the wallpaper down if there's any mold. Hopefully there's not. But there is a risk that if we do have another roof leak in those areas, which is it's susceptible to, then if water gets in behind the wallpaper, we're going to have this mold mess once again. Phase 2 is a preventative measure. It is an avoidance measure and loss control where we're going to I'm proposing that we just get rid of all the wallpaper in the occupied areas and paint the walls. That way we don't ever have to worry about mold developing again if we have a roof leak. We simply clean up the water and we're done. Now, as a result of the original plumbing issue, the carpet on the 3rd floor and carpet on the 2nd floor was stained. because it was one-piece carpet. The insurance company agreed to replace every inch of carpet on the third floor and every inch of carpet on the second floor. What we replaced it with is similar to what's in here. It's section, squares, that if the carpet gets stained or damaged in a section or part of the building now, all we have to do is pull up those sections and replace it with the same stuff. We don't have to tear out every inch of carpet if part of it gets wet or stained. The insurance money replaced all of that. So out of that $45,000, the original phase one is about 15. I haven't gotten the final bill yet, but I'm estimating it to be right at $15,000. That's done. We're asking for the additional 30 to do the preventative measures of removing the wallpaper and painting the walls.
And that's not insurance.
That's not insurance.
Right.
Any other questions? Committee recommendation, no second required. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Thank you, Mike.
Madison County Sheriff's Department, item 6, $14,942 request to replace funds encumbered at the end of June but were not paid until start of new fiscal year. And request that these funds be rebudgeted for fiscal year 2020 to be spent with purchase cards. This comes from fund balance.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion?
Did we know that this, money had not been spent when we made the new budget?
Barry.
It was, encumbered last year. There were purchase orders done at the end of the fiscal year. And over the end of the fiscal year, then as the items were purchased, they were bought. It's computer equipment for that Superion system. These items were bought from Amazon, Newegg, and Best Buy. You have to use purchase cards. Munis won't let you use the purchase cards over the end of a fiscal year. You've got to rebudget it in the new year. It's the same money was budgeted last year. It just has to be rebudgeted over the end of June so it can be spent for the materials order.
Any other questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Commissioner Taylor? Commissioner Taylor.
Item 7, EMA, $35,570. Fiscal year 2018 District 10 grant has been expended for motor vehicles, and the amount of $30,000 with carryover funds of $5,570.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Drug court, $22,147.52. Drug court grant is being carried over from prior year in the amount of $22,147.52 and will be spent for other charges.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Madison County Sheriff's Department, item 9, $131,546. BIM coordinator grant is being carried over from prior fiscal year in the amount of $131,546.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Commissioner Taylor.
Just a couple of questions. How many years have we had this grant?
1 year.
How many?
1 year.
1 year? Okay, let me just ask another question. So I see back on page 20 here that we have $102,000 of salary, so I would assume that's 2 people.
That's 3, or
3
2 apart.
Okay. Now let me ask you, what if this grant goes away? Do we have anything in writing says that those people will not be on your payroll? In other words, how does that apply to maintenance of effort, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I don't think it affects maintenance of effort, but I did not know about if the grant went away, if they would be kept.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is on these grants that we have people tied, we have voted as a commission not to have those people on. However, my concern is not just at the sheriff, I'm talking about any grant that we need to have something in writing that says that those people will not be tied, especially like in this case for the sheriff, because he can just take these 3 people, the grant goes away, he can have those 3 people, and they're put on his payroll. To me, that's not that's not our intention of when we go get the grant to go do it. I just want to make that real clear. I don't think we're following that way. In other words, I'm going to vote no on this grant because not because of the grant, but because of the inefficient. What we have is the ability to release these people if the grant goes away.
Mr. Becker.
It's my understanding that, Attorney Maroney may clarify, he may know this. If it is with the sheriff's department, then there's an automatic maintenance of that, whether it's a grant or not. So my understanding is that if we take on an employee through a grant in the sheriff's department and you lose the grant, that they still remain. We got to continue that on.
Mr. Brown.
Yes, sir. There's and many of you have worked with us, there's a common practice, correctly, Mr. Turner, if I'm misquoting it, throughout all government, from the highway department back to auditing and everything else, is that a position will be hired, a position being hired, this position exists until, for the life of the grant, or the life of the program. If this is taken care of, if this is established at the beginning, when the life of the program, in this situation, money runs out, you can renegotiate something different. I have personally done that in my regard. I came to Jackson working for HUD. When that money ran out,
They let you hear?
they want to be left, so they renegotiate with me. So I'm saying that, you cannot negotiate anything you don't have, but you can negotiate up to a time limit of what you do have. Under labor law.
Mr. Chairman, I understand what Mr. Brown's saying. I didn't quite hear what Mr. Beckman was saying, but I guess what my point is this a little bit different because of the maintenance of effort. I just want to make that real clear. I understand what you're saying, Mr. Brown.
Let Ms.
We have maintenance of effort tied to these.
Yes, we did confirm with the state and with CTAS, unless there is a clause in the grant, it does go into maintenance of effort.
Which is what I was saying.
Any other discussion? Bob, you want to repeat that grant?
It's $131,546. It's a victim coordinator grant.
For employees. Roll call.
Alexander.
Yes.
Arnold.
No.
Beckle.
No.
Brantley.
Yes.
Brown Claudel.
Yes.
Brown Scott.
No.
Bryant.
Yes.
Bush. No. Compton.
No.
Deaton.
No.
Ellison.
Yes.
Gobble.
No.
Hill.
No.
Johnson Arthur.
No.
Johnson Barber.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Mercer.
Yes.
Montague.
No.
Pearson.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Bang.
Yes.
Spearman.
No.
Stevenson.
No.
Taylor.
No.
Wall.
No.
I'd like to change my vote to pass. Can't change the law, I can change my vote. That's what Jimmy said.
Anybody want to change their vote? Any other vote? yeses, 14 noes, 1 passed, motion failed.
Item 10, $26,908.96. Alcohol saturation grant is being carried over from prior year in the amount of $26,908.96.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No.
Item 11, $6,935.49. Network coordinator grant is being carried over from prior year in this amount.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Item 12, $3,947.60, requesting miscellaneous revenue items in the amount of $3,947.50.
Committee recommendation, no second required. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
Mr. Chairman, that's all of the budget amendments. There's one item that the Finance Committee voted to bring to the Commission. The Finance Committee voted to recommend financing the Ashport Road property.
I have a motion to amend, I'm gonna read it just to ensure.
We need to suspend the rules.
Well, I'm amending the committee recommendation, so we don't need to suspend the rules, but I'm gonna read it just to ensure that the language is precise. I make a motion to amend the Financial Management Committee's recommendation so that, the motion is as follows. The county shall fund the school board's purchase of the Ashport property, provided the school board exercises its option to purchase by September 15th. And if the school board fails to exercise its option to purchase the Ashport property by September 15th, 2019, the county shall purchase the Ashport property provided it can be purchased for the same price it is presently available to the school system to purchase if its option is exercised.
Second.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second, Commissioner Thompson. Any discussion?
Yes, sir. I have listened to the news accounts of the school board meeting and also the finance committee meeting of the last few days. I will preface, and I'm gonna use my whole 2 minutes in our rule. Mr. Attorney, I'm gonna beg that every commissioner have a copy of the functional role of the private act established the school board. We have been micromanaging in many of our actions in the last 3 meetings to a disgraceful point. If we do not get a request from the school board, from the superintendent through the school board, who becomes the mouthpiece to the county commission, we don't have any business with the county commission except under Constitution with funding. There are a lot of things I don't like. I don't care anything about what, yeah, I do care. But what problems they do, that's their responsibility. We are looking very embarrassed, and we're strong on the school board to do that. We have more than what we can handle. Finance committee, management, that ain't even your business. Nobody voted for anybody on here, on this commission to be on the school board. I make school board decisions on building schools, picking sites, and things of that nature. Mr. Attorney, can we please get, with you in the next couple of months, get every commissioner here a functional, the fact sheet of what our role is with the school board. Because we keep wanting to make decisions, want to influence decisions. If we hear that they're doing something we don't like, we're going to jump in the way, we're going to supervise, we're going to reprimand. We need to do our job.
Commissioner Martin.
Thank you, Chair. This is Mr. Washington. 2 pieces of property. Which one is the better suited?
We recommended Ashport Road a year ago to the school board. We bought Passmore Lane on again. We revisited at the request of the school board to have 2 properties to evaluate. So we recommended property for the building of the KA. What we evaluated was the 42 acres on Ashport Road, where the civil engineer do a drawing to see if it would fit there. That was our question. Ashport Road is 60 acres of property, located on the, right on the 45 bypass. We're evaluating safety, traffic, and all those things. Now, Ashport has some traffic limitations that would have to be rectified during the building of it. But Passmore Lane also had traffic limitation and exposure to a major highway that we didn't want to take the risk of. So that's how, part of the reason we came up with Ashport Road when we did last year.
Okay, so if the finance committee had not basically said that they wouldn't pay for nothing but Ashport Road, were you all still gonna go with Ashport Road, or would you all have problems with the Passmore?
Well, the board would have made the choice. We were just provided evidence of
Well,
which
I'm
one to
saying,
make the
in your
choice.
opinion.
In my opinion, over a year ago, we settled on Ashport Road.
Okay, but do you think that the board would have still went with Ashport Road if the finance committee had said, this is the only piece of property that we're
Well,
going back?
I was on the committee of the finance committee when we voted, and I voted against the process of the finance committee dictating that. I didn't vote against the property, I voted against that process, which we're resolving now. This motion says that the school board then can, have the option to recommend the purchase of the Ashport property, if I understood this motion properly.
Okay, will this, property, you said with some set problems and some other problems, can work out? Okay. When would you start building this, new K-8?
Well, once we get the approval to purchase the land, we will hire a construction manager. We already have an architect, so as soon as possible after that. But we haven't had a construction manager, given all the delays and votes in order to acquire the property.
So you gonna build this before you build JC?
I didn't say that. I'm hoping that we
Well,
can do
no,
them all at once.
this is what you're telling me now. You saying, you gonna get a architect, you gonna get a manager, and
Yes,
everything in place.
yes.
So you basically saying that you're gonna forget about JC?
No, because the construction manager and
Well, I mean,
architect have been in place with
I'm-
Jason for a year.
I'm talking now to you.
That's fine. It's no
I
problem.
know what everybody else wants to dive in.
No problem.
You know, we're supposed to be civilized here.
No problem.
Well, they did it, so anyway, but anyway. We won't have no. But, I'm hoping that we will build JCN before we go any dirt work. I hear you, at Fort Road.
If the board recommends that and wants us to do that.
And you JCN first.
Okay.
I'm gonna have a major problem with you trying to build a K-8 out here. JCM need to be taken care of first. In my opinion, you shouldn't be worried about K-8 until you take care of JCM.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Point of order.
I think we have, in all due respect to my good friend Reverend Martin, the issue at hand is the
He's handling school board.
amendment, for the $15 million, $15,000. Can I finish? I didn't mean that number, I'm sorry. Thank you, sir. But, in the school board meeting, the board determined and requested to do a soil sample, exercising their job, their right, their legal obligations under the private act. Until such, actions have been, reported and you act on, I move that we'll take any actions on anything relative to any properties relative to school board, building, or anything, until they recommend us, that's their job. I so move that we take it.
I'll start now.
Have a motion, second table.
I did.
Roll call.
Yes.
No clarification on what we're on here?
To table it.
Roll call.
Alexander,
No.
Arnold,
Yes.
Beckham,
No.
Franklin,
Yes.
Brian Claudette,
Yes.
Brown Scott. No. Brian.
No.
Bush. No. Johnson.
No.
Dean.
No.
Ellison.
Yes.
Goddard.
No.
Hill.
No.
Johnson Arthur.
No.
Johnson Barber.
No.
Martin
Yes.
Mercer,
Yes.
Montague,
No.
Pearson,
Yes.
Petty,
No.
Same, Chairman,
Yes.
Peterson,
Oh.
Taylor, no, Wall.
No.
Mr. Chairman, while the votes are being counted, may I raise questions for county attorney? I never got a reply. Would you please, get us a copy of that, because obviously we show that we don't know, or we don't care what the private act, provides for our relationship.
I'll be happy to provide you any copies of any statutes you want concerning
The private act establishes, school, consolidated schools in their relation to county commission.
You
Non-parental.
want a just so I'm clear, while they're counting, you want a copy of the original consolidation agreement from approximately 1989, is that correct?
That would be fine, or either fact sheet with regard to our relationship.
Okay, well, your
But we really have.
relationship is defined by a series of statutes. I'll be happy to provide copies of any statutes that.
We basically have,
I'll make
three
sure I'm
functional,
addressing what
okay, one come from a man standpoint. I want it in writing.
We still in the middle of a vote here.
In fact, I'm saying, I asked about.
You want to ask one question, you asked about 10.
No, we're still discussing this.
No, let's finish the vote, and you can write.
All right, sir.
Our vote is 8 yeses and 17 noes. Motion to table failed. Now, Mr. Brown.
Okay, but I'm wanting to document, so that we will not continuously do it, is that we do not have a parental relationship with the school board. We do not usurp, we do not dictate, and we do not determine what they do. They are doing.
We're in the middle of a vote here, and you're still talking. We got a motion on the floor, table, now you got an amendment we hadn't voted on yet.
All right, sir, I'm sorry. Not through, I'm sorry.
Are you finished?
No. I respect what you said, but I'm
You
not
asked
through.
questions, you will get
I'll be glad to get any statutes, that you
That's what you asked, you said, okay, for it, so that's the
I'll be
question.
happy to do that. Any statutes you want addressing the, funding issues, whatever, you know, Tizzy Code Annotated is pretty large.
Right.
It might be advantageous to just, you know, send you links to something to look at.
Yes, we originally had that, I personally before the time, but, we need that for the benefit of the people who have to work in front of the school board.
We're voting on the amendment. Mr. Godwin?
I understand that, we've got several more, applications for Montessori schools than we have, places to put those folks. Would it be possible to amend this motion to include Pope as a Montessori school?
Well, we vote on property right now, that's all we vote on property. It's not, the property don't leave involved in this particular motion.
Well, I'm making a motion to amend the motion from the committee that we,
We're not voting the bill, still, we're voting purchase of property.
Yes, Attorney, that was from the county commission. I'm sure you read that.
Well, procedurally, you can make a motion to amend an amendment, that is procedural. However, like any other motion, it requires a second, it would require a majority vote for the amendment to the amendment to pass. That's separate and apart from the, you know, the substance of whether or not, that's something that's appropriate for the school board, for the county commission to do. Let me just answer, maybe this answers Mr. Brown's question as well as yours. In 30,000 foot view, broadly, this body funds the school board. You obviously, as I think you know, you don't direct their day-to-day operations, but you do direct their funding. And I think maybe that's the broadest answer to Mr. Brown's earlier question and may address your motion as well.
And we don't determine whatever their business plan is or their capital activities either.
You determine funding.
I said that we don't determine their capital, we determine the means.
Yes, sir, you determine the funding of what it is. that
Which is the
they-
means, right, what's the means.
Commissioner Wall?
Call for question.
We're voting on the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, second on call for question. I will stand here for a reason.
Question's been called for.
May
He was standing.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I just got one question, Mr. Washington.
Yes.
What do you all want? You all want to do a study, or you want to purchase what, they've already decided to do?
I understand I can address a couple things. As far as JCM concerned, we were charged, when we started, JCM wasn't on the table. We fully intend and want to build JCM and Madison. Those two projects are tied together. We've had a construction manager and an architect for over a year on that project. We just hired an architect for the K-8, wherever it might be, and have not hired a construction manager yet. So we're much further along in the process with JCM than we are with the K-8. We have not put JCM on the back burner at all. I just want to make sure that's clear. Right. That is not on the back burner at all. It's on the forefront. I meet with them weekly to get updates. That is not on the back burner. I just want to make sure we're clear on that. What my desire was, what our desire was originally when we talked about this property, was to address the fact of how it was done in the Financial Management Committee meeting. I spoke to our board about it. They wanted to make sure that they had the say-so in which property that was purchased. We had recommended Ashport over a year ago. We've still done that. And any other questions, I don't know really what you want from me other than we recommended Ashport. We want to make the board and have our school board make the decision on which property is purchased so that you can fund it and we can move forward with this process. We're thankful that you're agreeing to build a school. We want to make sure we identify a property to do it on, and we want to move the ball forward. This has gone on way too long. We've talked about this property for 18 months now. We've talked about it for 18 months.
So your board really hadn't made a decision?
No, we're asking them to make a decision hopefully at that September meeting.
We're voting on the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, question to call, and it's seconded, you have to vote on whether or not to close debate. Question.
Opposed? No.
It is a 2/3 vote.
Roll call. You're voting on to close debate.
Alexander.
Yes.
Arnold.
Yes.
Beckles.
Yes.
Sir.
Yes.
Brantley.
No.
Brown Claudette.
No.
Brown Scott.
Yes.
Bryant.
Yes.
Bush.
Yes.
Compton.
Yes.
Eaton.
Yes.
Ellison.
Yes.
Gobble.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Johnson Arthur.
Yes.
Johnson Barber. Martin.
Yes.
Mercer.
Yes.
Montague.
Yes.
Pearson.
No.
Petty.
Yes.
Payne.
Yes.
Spearman.
Yes.
Stevenson.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Wall.
Yes.
21 yes or 3 no. Motion ready to vote on the amendment. Somebody want to repeat your amendment.
The county shall fund the school board's purchase of the Ashport property provided the school board exercises its option to purchase by September 15th, 2019. And if the school board fails to exercise its option to purchase the Ashport property by September 15th, 2019, the county shall purchase the Ashport property, provided it can be purchased for the same price as presently available to the school system to purchase if its option is exercised.
Everybody understand the amendment? Roll call.
Alexander.
Yes.
Arnold.
No.
Beckles.
Yes.
Brantley.
No.
Brown Claudette.
No.
Brown Scott.
Yes.
Bryant.
Yes.
Bush.
Yes.
Compton.
Yes.
Eaton.
Yes.
Ellison.
No.
Gobble.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Johnson Arthur.
Yes.
Johnson Barber. Martin.
No.
Mercer.
No.
Montague.
Yes.
I'm sorry, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. Pearson.
No.
Petty.
Yes.
Payne.
Yes.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Wall.
Yes.
Seventeen yes, 7 no, one absent. The amendment passes. Now we're voting on the amended motion. Roll call.
Pardon me. Would you explain the amended motion to me?
You wanna read it again? The amended motion?
Okay, all right. That's it? Okay.
Yeah.
Which one is it what we're voting on? The amendment.
Roll call.
Alexander.
Yes.
Yes.
Arnold.
No.
Beckham.
Yes.
Franklin.
No.
Brown Cardell.
No.
Brown Scott.
Yes.
Sir?
Yes.
Thank you. Bryant.
Yes.
Bush.
Yes.
Compton.
Yes.
Eaton.
Yes.
Ellison.
No.
Gobble.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Johnson Arthur.
Yes.
Johnson Barber. Martin.
No.
Mercer.
No.
Montague.
Yes.
Pearson.
No.
Petty.
Yes.
Payne.
Yes.
Spearman.
Yes.
Stevenson.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Wall.
Yes.
Seventeen yeses, 7 noes, 1 absent. Motion passes. Arthur, that was all your.
That was it.
That was it. Item number 17, election of notary publics.
So moving.
Hold on, I got Mrs. Bell, I apologize. Go right
It's
ahead.
okay, it's okay. We have one amendment that we need to bring from the floor that you did not have in your packets. This is going to be in the legal services line item, 15,000, to add an additional 75,000, bring this line to 90,000 to cover the attorney's fees for the sheriff's lawsuit.
How many dollars involved?
Oh, we're adding 75,000. The current budget is 15, we'll bring the budget to 90,000.
Chairman, I move we suspend the rules.
Second.
Have a motion to suspend the rules. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Commissioner Stevens.
Mr. Chairman, I don't like to suspend the rules. Well, I apologize, I'm ahead of myself.
Now, I move to take her recommendation.
Have a motion and second. Commissioner Mercer. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Commissioner Stevens.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the rules to handle the memorials that we've been discussing. I'd like to make that motion.
What memorial?
Second.
The plaque.
Have a motion and second to suspend the rules, to discuss the plaque. All in favor say aye.
I thought we had a motion second on the floor for this, we just voted on this.
We voted on it. We voted on it. You know about the sheriff?
That's, and let's send it back out.
Yeah, we voted.
So that's what we're gonna make.
We're voting on to suspend the rules now, to discuss the plaque. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Commissioner Elton said no. Motion passes. Commissioner Cleary.
Thank you, Chairman Dean. Ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, the last time we discussed the things that I mentioned. And I'm not going back on what I mentioned, they were facts, but however they were complete. After the meeting, after our last meeting, I met with Ms. Cindy Boyle, she's the chairman of the Jackson Remembrance Project. And she thoroughly gave me information that I didn't know, and I never claimed to be no historian, but she thoroughly gave me information that we all needed to know, actually, for this subject is concerned. One thing I like the people that we talked about, Ms. Elijah Woods, John L. Brown, and Frank Ballard.
Well, I couldn't find out, see, I couldn't find out, Frank Ballard, he was only 17 years old. John L. Brown, that was accused of killing and stabbing a trained engineer. But we don't know the whole story. Well, kind of found out that the engineer did live, but he was accused of did, and they lynched him anyway. I'm gonna go get to the root of the matter of this thing. That everyone, then and now, deserves due process. Those folks didn't get their day in court. That's the bottom line. And that's what it's about. And it's only right that we make it right. We can't make it right directly with them, but with this body, what they're proposing to put this plaque up and tell about this, you know, actually I'm really excited about it because this is the right thing to do. I know it's been some discussion about the language, about it being terrorism. Well, it was. I mean, point blank, because we know terrorism is, as I quote, I got my glasses, unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians. So tell me that wasn't terrorism. I don't care how you slice it, that's what it was. And I want to point out too also, on today, 133 years ago, they cut Miss Eliza Wood's body down from a tree on our Madison County lawn. River was 133 years ago today. Now, me personally, because I can't tell you how to vote, but morally, it's the right thing to do to say yes, and let's move on with this. Thank you.
Mr. Walker.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. What I would say I voted with Commissioner Spearman during the last meeting that we talked about this and voted no on the motion simply because of the information that we were given. We were questioning because of some things that we had gotten and we had read. Since then, I too have made it a point to study this issue extensively. I've also met with Dr. Boyles, and there's one thing that really struck me with this whole situation with Eliza Woods especially, was the firsthand account of Robert Cartmill. Robert Cartmill had a street named after him here in Jackson, Cartmill Street, and there are 36, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Boyles, 36 or 39 diary entries, firsthand account of everything that he did from the weather that day. As a matter of fact, the day that Eliza Woods was drug out of the jail and hung on the courthouse lawn, he even mentions right before that he stopped off at his mama's house to either eat or something like that. So there are firsthand, very detailed accounts of this very thing that we're talking about for Eliza Woods. And the very last sentence in the diary entry for that day, and I've asked Billy to actually pull that up if he doesn't mind. I sent it to him today. This is his writing. This is the only circumstance of the kind I think has ever occurred in Jackson. May it be the last. There's no cause for anything of the kind. And with that, I'm going to vote yes on this motion. I'll make the motion that we accept the proposal with the proposed language from the Community Remembrance Project as written.
Have a motion second. Commissioner Stevens.
I just have mixed emotions about this whole thing, and I've talked to Commissioner Spearman and Commissioner Wall. I think the thing that we need to be, that we were having a problem with, and I was not at the committee meeting, was the back of the plaque. In other words, what it said on the back of the plaque. I understand, I think we're all in agreement on the front of the plaque, the back of the plaque is where we're having an issue. My problem with the back of the plaque is that we have this equal, and I'm sorry, I don't know the name.
Equal justice.
Okay, where are they out of, ma'am? Montgomery, Alabama. In other words, what I'm concerned about is that we have someone from Montgomery, Alabama telling us what we need to put on the back of the plaque. I have a problem with that. I mean, if we want to do the plaque, which I'm all in favor for, if we vote as a body to do that. But I do have difficulty with a group in Montgomery, Alabama telling us what they want to put on the back of the plaque. I just don't see it. I mean, what's going to keep them, ma'am, from coming back a year from now and telling us that they want to do something else? I mean, what is their role in our business, ma'am? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
That our group went to them. They didn't come to us. We went to them and said, we want to partner with you on this project. This is not a project just in Madison County, Tennessee. This is a project throughout the South. And it's not happening just here, it's happening in a lot of different places. So many other cities are going to have language very similar to that on the backside of their plaque. So this is a.
How many of their plaques have been successful?
This is not the equal justice initiative coming to us and telling us what to do. We've come to them and said, please, we want to partner with you on this.
Why did you not come to us first instead? Why did we go to them first?
Because they are part of a national movement. You're not.
I just have a difficulty understanding why we want to do something from a national standpoint instead of from a Madison County standpoint.
It's a part of a bigger movement than we are. It's not just us here. This is a part to recognize all of the people, with over 4,400 people that were lynched throughout the South and the other states. This is joining with that project, that national project, to be able to do that. And if you know anything about the Equal Justice Initiative, I don't think you would be questioning their motives here.
Mr. Petty.
Mr. Chairman, this thing originated in the property committee, which I chair, and we had a subcommittee appointed to work on the language of the plaque, and it kind of stalled out. And I don't know where it needs to go from there. But at this point, I think it needs to come back through the committee. That subcommittee needs to meet, work on that language aspect, and then let's go back to the property committee where it originated from, and bring it to the floor. So I move to table this discussion.
Motion to table.
I second that motion.
Have a motion second to table.
Point of order, we got several standards.
Yes, sir. I hope that this plaque will be more important tomorrow than it's been for the last 3 months. Inactivity, procrastination, everything but practice doing what we were charged to do. Last, I just want to point out one thing that we need to be mindful of. Millions of dollars come to our county for all kinds of projects, and somebody in Washington tells you how to spend it. Under what term are you gonna spend it? What you can spend it on. And I don't know why we won't get a whole endowed religion over something that's political.
We got a motion to table. Have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Roll.
Alexander. Yes. Arnold.
No.
Beckman. No. Brantley.
No.
Brown Claudel.
No.
Brown Scott.
No.
Bryant.
Pass.
Bush.
No.
Compton.
No.
Keith.
No.
Ellison.
Yes.
Goddard.
No.
Hill. No. Johnson Arthur. Johnson Barber. Martin.
Yes.
Mercer.
No.
Montague.
No.
Pearson.
No.
Petty.
Yes.
Stein.
No.
Spearman.
No.
Peterson.
No.
Taylor.
No.
Wall.
No.
Before we said yes, or no.
I'm gonna change my vote to yes.
Anybody else want to change their vote? against is 18 no, motion table fails. Do we have a motion on the?
Do have a motion. Motion was to accept the proposal by the Community Remembrance Project as written, and, to move forward with that project of placing the memorial plaque on the Madison County courthouse lawn.
I agree with everything he said. I agree that we should have the plaque. I do have trouble with, cooperating with a entity that, gets funding from George Soros and things like that. I have a problem with that. And I also have a problem with, we have innocent being killed today, and we don't have the passion for it. There's more abortions going on right now, and any other, where's the passion for them? I have a problem.
Can we go with the writing on the back of it?
What are we doing here? I mean, is there anything on the front side or the back side of this plaque that is wrong, that is untruthful? Tell me that. There's not. No. We have been kicking this can too long. I mean, this should be a no-brainer.
Here.
I mean, there's truthful language on the front, there's truthful language on the back, and this isn't gonna cost the county a single dime. I mean, it's gonna cost what? A hole in the ground. And you know what? I'll build it myself if that's gonna be an issue. I mean, this has gone on too long. What are we doing here? That's what I want to know.
Ready to vote? Roll call.
Against, pass. Arnold? Yes. Beckman?
Yes.
Brantley?
Yes.
Brown Claudette?
Yes.
Brown Scott?
Sure. Yes.
Sir?
Yes.
Bryant?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Bush?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Stevens?
All right.
Please.
Yes.
Ellison?
No.
Calvin? Yes. Hill? Yes. Johnson Arthur? Johnson Barber? Martin?
Yes.
Mercer?
No.
Montague?
Yes.
Pearson?
Yes.
Petty?
No.
Fang?
Yes.
Spearman?
Yes.
Peasley?
No.
Taylor?
No.
Wall?
Yes.
Anybody want to change their vote?
I wanna know what's written on the back of the plaque.
We got all that.
We did? When?
Yeah.
All, that's.
Then I wanna change mine.
You change it.
Yes, sir.
We got one change vote here. Right.
She would like to change it to?
No.
I can't remember.
16 yes. 6 no's, 1 pass, and 2 absent. Motion passes. Commissioner Brown.
I'd like to briefly commend everybody who showed the courage to support this act. And in one sentence, to acknowledge the truth of history, improves the likelihood that we won't repeat it. Be it in church, out of church, wrong has to be acknowledged before you can do better. Thank you.
Item number 18, any?
Subject, Mr. Chairman.
Notaries.
Yeah, 17, election of notary public.
Sorry.
Second.
Are you straight?
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Item number 18, any and all matters related to connected with matters set forth. Items 1 through 17. Have a motion to adjourn. Second. Roll call. Roll call.
We don't have a roll call.
Jay, we've had some people who want clarification on really what that motion means as far as, let's say hypothetically, the school board comes back and say 5-4 vote. They say, we're going to recommend Passmore Lane. What happens at that point?
Well, the county will move forward on September 15th with attempting to purchase the Ashport property if we can purchase it for the same price that it's been offered to the school system under the option. So it would be the $789,000 price. So we are willing to purchase it for that price. Now, if the landowner, we run the risk, could always say, well, we don't want to sell it to the county. We want to sell it to someone else after that option expires. But I think it was clear tonight we had 2/3 of the commissioners vote in favor of the Ashport property, that is where the commission wants to see the school and we're willing to fund it. I don't think the support's there to spend an additional $1 million on the Passmore property.
So basically what we're at is a point where at the September school board meeting, they have to decide yay or nay, we're going to do this or not.
I think that's a fair assessment.
All right. Hey, thanks very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. And we're going to be trying to talk to some of the people upstairs because we want to find out from the people who are part of this community project, because there are many of them I know that they have been very, and there's a lot of emotions over here about this. So we're going to move in that direction. We're still live here. We're going to try to see if we can get Dr. Boyles. How are you? Good, man.
Don't fall.
Yeah. How you doing?
What's his name? Like a long time coming, you know. I know a change gonna come, you know.
Let me talk to Dr. Boyles. Let me talk to you just a moment. How your reaction to this vote tonight?
I feel like I've just finished a marathon. It's like I'm kind of overwhelmed with emotion right now.
Well, and I think
this happened.
I think many people would certainly understand that completely. A big question is, these things are always difficult, particularly, and if they become political, it's a tough situation. But from your vantage point, and I know you had two key commissioners who opposed this, in Jeff Wall and Mr. Spearman, but what really, when you sat down with them, do you think was the turning point that helped them to do what they did tonight?
I think that I really commend both of them for being able to re-look at their vote and re-look at their stance and look at the facts of what happened and come to the realization that this was all about due process. And to look at the facts and to listen to it. I think that was the difference, that they were listening to this is what happened. And I don't know for sure, but I think they probably got a lot of feedback from their constituents and saying, you know, this is the right thing to do. So I really do commend them for reconsidering their vote and having the courage to come back and say, okay, we want to meet with you now, and now they wanted to bring that here tonight.
The fact that this was virtually a 2/3 vote also of the commission, how does that make you and your group feel tonight?
It feels great. I mean, there were obviously, I was keeping track of which commissioners were voting for what, and there were a lot of commissioners that voted against it the last time who voted yes this time, who, quite frankly, I would not have suspected that they would have voted yes. So I'm very happy that Madison County has done this, and we have now gone from the county that refuses to recognize these lynchings to one of the great counties that has said we are going to recognize what happened here, and we're going to become part of this greater movement that the Equal Justice Initiative is initiating, this conversation that's going on all over the South, and actually all over the United States, actually. It's not just the South.
We thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And so it has been a very, very significant evening here as we wind it up at the Madison County Commission. In case you joined us late, the commission voted by approximately a 2/3 vote to move forward with the purchase of land on Ashport Road. They will, and what really, if you just listen to Jay Bush's interview, he's the one who made the motion, and if you listen very close to his interview, what it really comes down to, and I'm going to try to step down here and flip around so we can communicate with you a little bit better. And so give us just a second here and we'll get back to you. There we go. What really we have now is a situation where it will go back to the school board at their meeting, which is going to be the first week in September. As of last week, they had not decided whether that would be September 3rd or September 5th, but it's going to be at some point right after Labor Day. And they have the choice to go ahead and endorse this idea, finally, of building the school on Ashport Road. And if they do, then they will move forward with beginning really the preliminaries before construction can begin on the K-8. Now you heard Superintendent Ray Washington tonight say that he's hopeful that the Jackson Central Mary School and the Madison Academic School, which is part of a public-private partnership, that's a hard thing to say. Try doing it 6 times real fast, but he has said that he really hopes all 3 schools can be built at the same time, but a lot of that still depends on the financing, the approval of the financing package to make all of this happen. But for the most part, if you heard our interview with Jay Bush after the meeting, there's not a consideration now on the part of this commission to go with Passmore Lane, even if some school board members decide that's what they still want to do. So, and then, of course, after the decision on Ashport Road, which was about a 2/3 vote of the county commission, then the decision was made by an overwhelming vote of this commission to go forward with a plaque that commemorates specific people that were the victims of lynchings back more than a century ago, and attempting to try to, as has been said by some of the people, to correct wrongs by at least acknowledging that something wrong happened in the past. It was not easy, again, for some commissioners, and there were some who still voted against it because they are opposed to the Equal Justice Initiative, which is the organization that has been funding a lot of these things. There's some opposition because of the fact that George Soros, who funds a lot of money into liberal causes in this country, there's a lot of still discontent over that. And yet this commission decided to go forward with the plaque. And so there will be a time at some point in the near future that you heard Adrian Montague say that it was a case of that if he had to dig the hole himself and construct it, he would, so that it guaranteed that it would not cost the county any money. And so we have that, and so the next big thing in this decision about Ashport versus Passmore is, will the school board finally make their decision to go forward with Ashport Road and make it final? And that is something that we'll see at the September meeting, because they are dealing with a September 15th deadline on the option on that Ashport Road property. It's interesting that it still continues to be a bit of a chess game, not finalized yet, but perhaps it will be after the school board meeting in September. Well, it's been an interesting one of the longer ones that we've had here. It ran for about 2 hours and 35 minutes. So we're going to wrap it up and hope all of you will join us for our next live coverage here on West Tennessee Today. And so until we're with you then, this is Steve Beverly saying, remember, on West Tennessee Today, when news breaks out,